because I had the pleasure of working with them for the last more than 10 years, working with them on climate adaptation, mitigation, also community-based work, oceans as well. So I'd like to ask them if they could stand up, like Lavinia, Talay, also Emmanuel, Patrick, and who else? Ratovini. These are the communities and the people from Fiji, Solomon Islands, and Papua New Guinea, where my team from WWF Pacific worked very, very closely on the ground. My role as a policy person, I do the most boring job, but I think it's also an important job because when I speak to these communities, what they always say to me is that without policy, our efforts on the ground will come to nothing. So the work that they do on the ground, they feed into me, and I have to advocate for policy change at national all the way up to the global level. So these are the people that I work with, and I'm always acknowledging their efforts and the champions of our communities on the ground. So with my presentation, we work at WWF Pacific works in 3 countries across a lot of different communities on the ground, resource owners, and it's very, very hard for me to condense them within 5 to 7 minutes. So I'm just going to use one case study example. Do I point there? Sorry, this is an extract from the IPCC report on the cryosphere, the one that was released, correct me if I'm wrong, in last year, if not last year, then the other year. So it just shows the impact of climate change on people and nature, and especially on the ocean, and the different scenarios: sea level rise, coral bleaching, and species decline or biodiversity loss, just to name a few. But when I talk about climate change, it's very, very difficult for me to just focus on climate change without acknowledging the other types of issues that we face. The unsustainable development issues, the oceans issues, the pollution issues, and the nature loss and biodiversity issues that we face. So every time I talk about climate change, I like to consider all of this as very interrelated, connected challenges that we need to address together and not in silos. So just one very, very small example. In 2016, when Cyclone Winston, a tropical cyclone, hit Fiji, and it's not just Fiji but other Pacific Island countries, one of our partners, Wildlife Conservation Society, did a rapid assessment of the impacts of Cyclone Winston on some of the reefs in Fiji, and this is the outcome of that. The cyclone not only just damaged the reef systems, the corals, but it also damaged the associated ecosystems on land, the mangroves, the seagrasses, and also the forests and the rivers and streams which are connected to the ocean. And they also made a recommendation out of it, a few recommendations, and one of them is that, much more, we need very specific rapid assessments, funding to be able to do this after a cyclonic event or a disaster event, to be able to estimate the total impact of it, and it's not just on biodiversity, but also a socio-economic impacts and other types of impacts on disaster, on people and also nature. And that, if you're looking at disaster preparation and, protecting our nature before disaster strikes by eliminating and reducing the impacts of other types of human-induced activities of unsustainable development, over-extractions, then there's a possibility that when disaster strikes, these biodiversity areas will be resilient, can bounce back very, very easily, and in turn, it will assist the local communities which are dependent on it for much, much stronger adaptation and resilience and bouncing back from natural disaster. Also, there is a collective action as a group to look at the coral reef rescue initiatives, and so identifying all the different types of resilient reefs from around the world, and working with all those communities that own those reef systems, who are the indigenous people of these reef systems, to actually protect these reefs, so that these reefs could actually provide seed to replenish other reef systems who are not so much resilient. And this is an ongoing effort that we're working with other partners from across 7 different countries around the world to implement this, and 2 of these countries are in the Pacific.
Sure.
In addition to that, so this is the Great Series. The area that is highlighted in light blue is actually the region that we work with in Fiji, across those communities. It's quite a very, very important reef system for Fiji. And as I mentioned, when we are addressing climate change with the communities along this reef system, we're not just focusing on just climate change, but we're looking at all other types of issues that are induced by unsustainable development, pollution, land-based activities, from agriculture, from illegal forest activities, and also illegal and unreported fishing activities that takes place within this reef system. And the expansions of tourism, together with the impacts of climate change. So we also learned a lot of lessons based on working with these communities, that this action requires an integrated approach. This journey requires an integrated approach. It also requires a multi-pronged approach to a crisis that is across all climate, oceans, unsustainable development, biodiversity, and also pollution. Multi-partnership and strong collaboration is very, very important. Working very, very closely with the local communities and the indigenous people to identify their priorities and ensure that we are addressing their priorities and their needs and elevating their voices, but at the same time connecting to other partners, those with special capabilities that we can bring into the journey and into this partnership to try and support the work that is that is on the ground. I would like to make reference to one community that we have here in Fiji, and that is the district of Nadula. Lavinia, who's sitting over here, is actually from the district of Nadula. We had worked with them for more than 10 years in terms of coming up with their district integrated sustainable development plan. So if you look at the slide, at the bottom left-hand corner, those are some of the thematic areas that is under this plan. So this sustainable development plan is a 20-year plan that can be reviewed every 5 years. We have worked with them to build the capacity to implement this plan. And this plan looks at climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction, oceans, women empowerment, traditional leadership and knowledge practices. And Lavinia, together with the District Development Committee, has been very, very active in implementing this plan. And if you want to know more about this plan, talk to Lavinia. We are scaling up such best practices with all the other communities in Fiji and looking to replicate this with our communities that we work with in Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea. And scaling up is also quite important to us. Scaling up, scaling wide, and also scaling deep to ensure that we, learn from the challenges that we face and capturing best practices and lessons. Last year, we brought a group of communities from Fiji here as part of our Oceania Voices project. It's a collaboration between some of the targeted communities that WF Australia work with in Fiji, in Australia, WF New Zealand work with in New Zealand, and also the communities that we work with in the Pacific. It's called the Oceania First Voices, and as a collective, we were able to come up with an outcome document which we took to COP27 last year. This year we hosted a national symposium in Fiji, bringing various types of communities in Fiji into one place, together with partnership with some other organizations and private sector. And we let the communities share their stories, and we sit as audiences, bring the government departments to sit in the audience and listen to the communities talk. Share their stories, share their innovation, celebrate their successes, but also the challenges that they face. And together we came up with an outcome document called the Kauai Communique. Kauai Communique is a call for action from communities committed to do what they can within their own capacities and capabilities to address the climate and ocean crisis, but also calling for action from governments, civil societies, and other NGO partners and other stakeholders to support them in this journey. I'll be happy to share this Kauai Communique, but these two important documents over here could actually be something that can feed into the outcome of this. And it's a collective voices from more than 30 communities that we have worked with. Every year, we plan to do this every year, and to increase the number of participants from the 30 communities that we had brought together this year as a pilot and then scale that up within Fiji, but also across the region as a regional platform. So that is all I have for you now. I wish I had more time to talk to you about this, but thank you so much for listening and happy to contribute and please feel free to talk to the communities representatives right here to learn more about the initiatives and the stories.